Just when everyone was starting to think that things were finally cooling down, a new wave of stories started to surface that completely turned the situation on its head. What really happened behind closed doors is being pieced together by fans. People are talking about it online and blogs are picking it up. According to these sources, things turned extremely tense when Scrappy allegedly drew Mendeecees aside for a private conversation that quickly became anything but peaceful. Remember now that we are simply discussing what has been reported. People are discussing about the information that has surfaced, despite the fact that none of this has been confirmed. Witnesses said that the mood shifted as soon as Scrappy asked Mendeecees to leave the gathering. Reports state that what was supposed to be a peaceful moment turned into a heated dispute with raised voices and overflowing emotions. Many have been shocked to learn that both men have been trying to maintain a specific image lately. But this specific instance hit a chord just when things couldn't get any more difficult. According to reports, Yandy stepped in at the worst possible moment. Some claim that she interrupted to defend herself. Some believe she was trying to keep things under control before they went out of control. In any event, it is claimed that her presence added a level of stress that nobody had expected. Because of the strong feelings and uneasy atmosphere, people nearby didn't even seem to know how to respond. What did Mendeecees and Scrappy say? Why did things spiral out of hand so quickly? What role did Yandy really play at that specific time? Fans are divided right away. Some are in favor of Scrappy, some are in favor of Mendeecees, and many are curious as to what initially sparked the fight. One thing is clear. If these stories are even halfway true, the problem could drastically change their relationship, and the effects might only be getting started. Scrappy stepped forward and whispered to Mendeecees to get out of the way. People could not help but notice the shift in the room's energy. It wasn't too loud at first. Even though it wasn't immediately obvious, those who were paying attention could tell something wasn't quite right. The supporters were shocked by how well-planned and controlled everything seemed from the outside, as if everyone understood how to play their part. But according to the rumors circulating, this was one of those occasions when sincere emotions were lost. They moved away from the group just far enough to appear private without drawing attention to themselves. A few people nearby immediately noticed the body language. Scrappy didn't feel comfortable. His posture was rigid, his shoulders were somewhat forward, and his eyes were fixed as though he had something crucial to say. Mendeecees, on the other hand, first appeared almost too calm, as though he had no idea what was about to occur. Because of that difference alone, people were whispering even before a word was spoken. Sources claim that Scrappy didn't take long to introduce himself. Reports state that his voice suddenly became low but sharp. Something regarding remarks spoken behind his back. Something about deference. Things that had clearly been evolving for a while. There have reportedly been other cases, and fans are already debating what exactly caused this. It has a multifaceted quality, as though long-suppressed tension is now emerging. Reports state that DC first tried to maintain order. According to witnesses, he responded coolly, choosing his words carefully, almost as if he was aware of who may be watching or listening. This calm reply, though, might have had the opposite effect. According to some, it made Scrappy even more agitated and gave the 11 to 11 the sense that he wasn't serious about the situation. Emotions erupted as the talk lost its initial restraint. There are claims that Scrappy brought up certain situations. Situations that, in his opinion, went too far. The charges weren't loud at first, but they were pointed enough to demonstrate that this wasn't a coincidence. The tone sent a clear message even if people nearby couldn't hear every word. The remarks become increasingly scathing. The pauses between sentences grew shorter, and it appeared that neither of them was prepared to make concessions. Their relationship was no longer the only source of stress. Others in the room started to pay attention at this time. They looked at each other as it became clear that something important was happening. Subtly at first, then more obviously. Fans are surprised since these are the kinds of moments that are usually kept under wraps. These sources say that this one started to leak, but it was handled behind the scenes. After Mendeecees moved his job, things apparently became worse. The calm tone changed, yet it did not completely disappear. There was a hardness now, a tiny pushback that suggested he wouldn't just absorb everything. Scrappy seems to pick up on the shift immediately. Reports state that the conversation became more candid and less circumspect. Each side started to express their precise emotions. According to reports, Scrappy questioned allegiance, questioned intentions, and even made references to subjects that had never been publicly mentioned before. It was sufficient for followers to start establishing links on the internet, even albeit none of it was authenticated. Was it more recent, or was it connected to something deeper that had been evolving over time? That question alone has caused division among people. In these cases, the rate at which the dynamic changed was especially remarkable. At one point, it seemed like a controlled conversation, but neither of them had expected it to feel more like a confrontation. Witnesses said that even if the voices didn't necessarily get louder right away, they were clearly powerful. The kind of tension that makes people uncomfortable even if they can't hear what is being spoken. Then came the moment that really turned everything around. Mendeecees reportedly responded with just as much ferocity as Scrappy. Sharper and more direct, not louder, as though he had been holding back and had now decided to stop. Fans are shocked since things started seeming one-sided at that point. This was no longer only a disheveled tirade. This involved the full participation of both sides. The conversation, according to some, went too far at that very moment. The tone was drastically changed by whatever was said during that exchange. It was reported that there was tension between them, as though one wrong word could make things worse. People in the vicinity started to pay closer attention, trying to understand what was happening without showing undue interest. Rumor has it that other individuals in the room were thinking of taking over at the same time. It wasn't because anything physical was happening, but rather because the intensity of the feelings was rising quickly. It was very clear that there would be no peaceful conclusion to this. Fans on the internet have already reacted, saying that this is the kind of tension that persists beyond a single conversation. The tension is increased by the potential that this is not the first time something similar has happened between them. Smaller instances might have existed in the past. Reports state that issues were ignored or downplayed but never properly addressed. That is true. Then there was more to this dispute than just coincidence. This was something that had been growing and was just about to emerge. By now, the tone in the room had completely shifted. What had started out as a minor alteration had grown into a clear focal point. Even those who weren't directly involved could feel it. The talk slowed down. Everyone's attention kept silently returning to that one corner where Mendeecees and Scrappy were having a furious debate as the spotlight drifted. Furthermore, just when it seemed that the situation could not become much more violent, there were early signs that someone else was going to step in. Not quite involved, not meddling, but close enough to see what was happening and possibly react. Everyone was aware that adding another voice to the conversation could either calm things down or make things worse. Therefore, the tension was raised just by the presence. As the presence that had been lurking on the periphery of the situation progressively became more noticeable, those nearby started to identify it. Yandy had been watching without making a scene or rushing in, but it was clear that something wasn't quite right. According to reports, many are shocked that she didn't step in immediately. Instead, she observed as though trying to understand what was being said before deciding how to respond. Back in that awkward corner, Scrappy and Mendeecees had already gotten to the point where neither of them was holding back. His tone became increasingly direct with each chat, as though he wanted to make sure that everyone heard what he was saying in spite of the interruption. However, when Yandy stepped in, Mendeecees' perspective seemed to shift dramatically. Rather than retreating, he acknowledged her presence in a way that suggested he was aware of the potential interpretations of the situation. In an effort to ascertain whether her involvement unintentionally boosted or decreased tension, fans are already analyzing this scene. It is clear from these accounts that Yandy's intervention did not terminate the conversation. If anything, it became more layered. Now, Scrappy and Mendeecees weren't the only ones coping with their issues. A three-way dynamic was created when disparate emotions and points of view converged in one place. Such circumstances typically don't end fast. This one, according to witnesses, was no exception. There are claims that Yandy tried to divert the conversation from any sensitive subjects. But if that was her intention, it didn't exactly work out. Scrappy seemed to stay focused and carry on communicating whatever had been building up despite being in the mix. His level of persistence indicates that he was unwilling to let go, which has many people in shock. Ely. Rumor has it, though, that Mendeecees' response changed once Yandy got involved. He seemed to be finding a new balance, not softer, but calmer. People nearby could not ignore the contrast that resulted from such minor alteration. Everyone at the time seemed to have different goals that weren't really aligned with each other. The stress didn't increase, but it also didn't decrease. Instead, it hung heavily in the air, a sign that whatever was happening remained unsolved. People nearby reportedly looked at each other, confused of whether to take additional action or stay out of it completely. That ambiguity simply served to hide. Instead, he continued to focus on Mendeecees while acknowledging her presence. That balance made the situation considerably more problematic. It was not a simple disagreement with a clear path. Instead, it was compounded by a range of conflicting emotions. Now that he is more active, Monik seems less concerned with maintaining order. His responses took on more depth and clarity, as if he were finally saying what he had been holding inside. That shift showed that Scrappy was no longer the sole one pushing the conversation. Both sides were now fully involved. There are claims that trust was a topic of discussion at this point. Rather than being stated directly, this was suggested by the way things were expressed. The evolution of respect and trust throughout time. The way the discussion progressed made it clear that those are the kinds of issues that require time to resolve. Since it's hard to tell who is right in a situation like this from the outside, 555 admirers are divided. Some people are standing with Scrappy, saying he had every right to voice his concerns if something had been bothering him.